Frequently, I get asked about women, wellness, and wisdom. And I think those are the three favorite topics of mine. And reason being is because one, I am a woman. I'm still working on my wisdom. And the wellness is the most important part, I think, currently in my lifetime. And in sharing this with you all today, I will preface it with this. Previously, in my years, as I've been growing and developing as a human being, spiritually, physically, religiously, I have found that my lifetime goal previously was to have children and to get married. And this was my aspiration. And I think currently where I am in my life, I have superseded that goal. And currently, what I want to share with everyone is that my goal is to die much more healed than wounded. This is my lifetime goal. And in arriving to this conclusion, to this goal for myself, I'd like to share with other women about the reasons why and what led me to that. So I'll preface it with my story. And my story actually began about 5-6 years ago. And it was probably one of the deepest, lowest points of my life. And in being transparent and sharing myself with others, I have found much more connection. I'm a firm believer that we have much more in common than we do different with the human being. And as of 6 years ago, I was in a relationship that was not growing me in any kind of way. It was a toxic relationship, and more so, I didn't see my partner for 6 months out of the year just because of their job. And I remember so specifically and so vividly that I had 2 weeks where I didn't get out of bed. The only time I got out of bed was to go to the bathroom because I had to. My fridge didn't have groceries in it for about 3 weeks. I wasn't hungry. I didn't laugh. I didn't talk. I didn't call anybody. Nobody called me. And I was the loneliest I had ever been in my life. And now looking back, it was a major depressive episode, but I didn't know it. And it's taken me a long time to actually really own this inside myself, because in my culture and in my family, I was taught that this is a sign of weakness. I was taught that this is not something you talk about. This is something that you keep to yourself. I was taught by my mother that women are to be strong. Women are to be the helpers for others. They're not supposed to ask for help. And that's probably one of the things that I have been challenged with the most personally. It's being that strong person that is there for others rather than asking for help. And these are some of the main reasons why I'm choosing to share my message, not only as a healer, not only as a psychotherapist, but as a human being, as a woman, as a sister to any of women that are experiencing this. And in regards to wellness, I do want to touch on anxiety and depression today. And one of the biggest light bulbs that I've ever received in my lifetime about anxiety and depression is this: the idea that anxiety is living in the future and depression is living in the past. And when we are truly present, living in the present, that is where the greatness occurs. That is where you are truly in your essence, in your alignment, and with your purpose. And for the longest time, I wasn't there. I was either living in the past or I was living in the future. And there was fear there. And I've come to discover that in exploring wellness and what that means for me and where that will lead me, it's understanding, am I making decisions for my life from a place of woundedness or healedness? Anytime that I have a difficult decision to make, I very frequently ask myself, am I making this decision from a place of love or from a place of pain? Am I working from a space of healing and having others have healing as well? Or am I coming from a place of the pain I endured in childhood, the pain I endured growing up as a young woman, and now fully into my career as a professional? I think it's interesting that in order to have wellness and wisdom as women, we need to take responsibility for what it is that we're doing, but also what we're saying. The spoken word has so much power. And in the spoken word, we need to take responsibility for what it is we are choosing to allow into our lives, but also what is coming out of our mouths. Happiness is a choice, and wellness goes hand in hand in it. And the biggest thief of that is comparison. And I think that's where a lot of women are coming from. It's comparing their life to somebody else's, comparing their life to what we see in the magazines, to what we see other women doing. But it's really living in your fullness, living in your awareness and in your purpose, and knowing this is the life of my choosing. Frequently, we think that life is happening to us versus for us. And this is where the sweet spot occurs. This is where the knowledge we have actually becomes the wisdom, where we put it into place. We put it into practice of what this means for us and what it can do for us. In doing this, doing the work with women, some of the moments where I have felt much more connected with human beings in that sacred space is when women have shared in transparency their vulnerabilities, how they feel about their bodies, perfect and imperfect in every single way, but also their wounds, telling me about broken relationships or the fact that they're raising children and they have no idea how they're doing without any feedback, without any support, or even the idea that they are probably the healthiest member of their family. That definitely goes back into the health for a woman. Very frequently, I find this in the work that I do, but also in speaking with women. We think that health is a consideration of the body, the physical being. Do we feel headaches? Does our stomach hurt? Does our body ache? But very rarely do we ask ourselves, how does the spirit feel? How does our inner being mingle with what it is that's going on? Humorously, I say that if I had a broken arm and I asked somebody for help, immediately I'd have 3-4 people say, hey, I'll take you to the ER. But if somebody says, hey, my heart just got broken yesterday, nobody really would say, hey, you know what, let's go seek a professional. Let's go have somebody to talk to about this. That's exactly what mental health does. And this is why I'm so passionate about it as a woman. Because I found that these are the things that are less talked about, especially in cultures that are minorities or underrepresented, have less services available to them. This is why I'm passionate as a Latina about serving my community, especially in Spanish-speaking services. Because this is something that's not out there. This is why community services are so important, such as where we are today. Today I'm speaking to a group of people that not necessarily would reach out for services. This is so important to understand because it's knowing how to ask for help when we don't have it, knowing how to ask for what we need versus what we want. Another part of wellness for women is just that. It's knowing what we need versus what we want. Here's the difference. When somebody knows what they want, it's a direct correlation with instant gratification. It's, I want what I want in this moment. I want to be with that person because I feel lonely. I want my children to do X, X, and X because otherwise, what will people say of my parenting? What will people say of me as a mother, a wife, and a sister? These are the wants. When somebody comes from a place of need, they are fully in the understanding and in the knowledge and in the wisdom that it has a long-term effect. They are delaying gratification for the longer good, for the outcome. And this is where wellness takes into place, because we all know as women, as people that are growing and developing, that things don't just happen from one day to another. This is why most diets don't work, because it's persistence, it's grit, it's knowing what's best for you in the long run instead of grabbing the bag of chips. This is what matters. This goes hand in hand with our level of self-esteem. One of the wisest people that I've had the pleasure of having conversation with told me that women, when in the courtship, in getting to know another person, a partner, unfortunately, they frequently put themselves on sale. And this is what I mean. They told me that we date according to the level of our self-esteem. People that we call into existence, that we manifest, that we give our energy to, are actually a reflection of ourselves. They're a reflection of how we feel about ourselves, about our self-esteem, and about our person. As women, and I can't say all, but boy, I'll tell you, I know some women that love to shop. I know I do. You walk into a store, and unless you have a list with you, more than likely you're gonna end up buying things you don't need. Once again, going back to the needs and the wants and the wisdom to know the difference. If you go into a store and you have a list with wants and needs, the signs that said for sale, 25% off, 40% off, will not catch your attention. They will not stray you from determining what it is that you need versus what you want. And the reason I use this example so much when I speak to women and their worth and their quality and their queen is because they're not making that correlation. Frequently, as women, in wanting partnership, in wanting to build that kingdom, that empire with someone, they put themselves on sale. And later they don't understand why the purchaser paid less for them, why their worth is where it is. Because as women, we set the standard. We set the standard for what our worth is and how that's determined. It's knowing what your worth is on the shelf as a product. As a businesswoman, as an entrepreneur, as a psychotherapist, as a human being, I am in full awareness of this. This is a conclusion, a light bulb that I've come to in my lifetime, that people don't buy a service, merchandise, product. People buy you. And if people understand what your value is, they have no problem paying for that. And what I mean by that is people paying into time with you, investing in you. Relationships are an investment. It's knowing where that energy goes. It's knowing what type of person they are and how we're categorizing them. Is this a person that you're allowing into your life for wellness? Is this a person that is just sucking energy out of you? Or are they just a neutral person? The most important wisdom that will come into place is when we have all three of these people play a part in our lives. And we will, because sometimes we can't choose those people. What does happen is that sometimes our family, their longtime friends, childhood friends, that we don't know how to categorize them or where to put them. Maybe they're even neutral, and this is where the danger lies, especially for women that are trying to get to know themselves and their worth. People who are neutral can either stray on the side of energizing or energy sucking. And if we go towards the energy sucking and we have a couple of those in our lives, that's going to be a big problem because they add up. It's knowing where are you investing your own personal growth as well. It's been said time and time again, and even as a Latina, as a Spanish speaker, we have a saying in Spanish that says, it's better to be alone than to be in bad company. And I love this saying because it's understanding how do you feel around others and what do you bring to the table. Very frequently, I hear this saying that says, I used to be afraid when I walked into a room and I wondered, will they like me? Will I be okay? Will I be accepted? Will rejection come to me? Now I am in full understanding that it's not about that. It's about knowing, do I like them when I walk into a room? Do they bring value to my life? Are they at my level in essence? Do they see me and hear me for who I truly am? It's asking important questions like this in your life as a woman that wants to rise her level, that wants to increase her wisdom and her wellness overall. The physical body and the mind go hand in hand together. And this is what I mean. Whether we look at it from a medical model, an energy model, a spiritual model, the human being is a holistic entity. And if our mind is right, the body will follow. But more importantly, the body leads the mind. The body speaks for us. It is the primary language of ourselves. Intuition is the language of the soul. And the body speaks for us louder than anything else I have ever known. The body will speak when the mind doesn't want to listen. The body will speak and scream for us to stop doing something. So in relationships, in situations where we don't necessarily know what we need to do, or we don't want to do it, we don't want to listen, our body will speak for us. It's examples, it's situations where we are in relationships, whether it be as sisters, mothers, or daughters, that we have to stop and ask ourselves that big question, how does this make me feel? When you leave that person's presence, when you leave speaking with them, do you feel inspired? Do you feel drained? Do you feel like you want to go out and just save the world one person at a time? This is what is so important to understand as women, and it goes hand in hand. Reading your body. Techniques that I frequently go over with clients that I see, whether it be coaching clients, psychotherapy clients, or just people in general that I have these amazing conversations with, because that's what it's about, right? Connecting with others. This is what I say. I ask them, how often do you check in with yourself? How often are you asking yourself the questions that matter? How does my body feel today? When I did that, was I passionate? Was I fully in my purpose? These are beautiful questions to ask ourselves instead of asking, what do I want for lunch? These are basic questions, and if we want to get to another level that includes superseding anything you've ever done, you will be uncomfortable. Sharing your story is probably one of the most uncomfortable things you will ever do, and I'm here sharing that. That a lot of the times people will post and share with others their great moments of glamour and glitz, but very infrequently will they share the moments that are not so great. Even me being in this career, I very frequently remember that moment where I probably had $50 left in my account because I paid for school 100% cash. And I didn't know how I was going to pay rent, food, or gas that week. But all I knew is that I was going to do it. It was persistence and it was grit. And I share this with other women because you have that capacity inside you. It's knowing that you have that power in you as an entity. You have the power to give life, to create life. Whether you decide to or not, that's a personal choice. But just that gift that you have been given to create life is something so amazing. Only women have that power. They say that if you want something done or if you want something fixed, give it to a woman and it'll happen. And I couldn't agree more. And my message today, more than anything, is that in order to get past any type of blocks you may have, whether they be emotional or physical pain, it's to be vulnerable. Only through vulnerability will we have connection with others. Vulnerability is actually the path that is less taken. If we have people really examine how often they are vulnerable, most of us have learned that it's not okay. Culturally, within our friends, within our families, it's something that we don't do. Especially as a Latina, I can understand in the community that it's something you keep to yourself. This is what makes you strong. This is what makes it acceptable in our families. And my last message today, giving this to you, will be this. Would you like to be the change you like to see in your family? Gandhi says that if you want to see change in the world, start with yourself. You be the change you want to see in the world. And with women, it starts with you. It starts with you changing your mentality, taking ownership for your life, but also knowing that in being vulnerable and showing that side of you that needs help, that's what will take you to greatness. And together we can make a difference. Thank you.